Ever feel like the role of a chief marketing officer is kind of, I don't know, shrouded in mystery? Like, what are they actually doing all day? Crafting jingles in a dimly lit room somewhere? Or maybe plotting global brand domination?
Maybe a little of both.
Right. Well, today we are diving deep into the evolving world of CMOs, separating myth from reality. And we're doing it with some help from a really interesting article by Kamyar Shah.
Yeah, and what makes this deep dive even more interesting is that Shaw himself, he actually wears two hats. He's a business consultant, but he's also a fractional CMO himself.
Oh, wow. So double the expertise, double the insight. And one of the things he tackles head on in this article is how many misconceptions there are about what a CMO actually does, especially now that we're living in this digital world. It's not like the old
It's
days.
definitely not Mad Men anymore, that's for sure.
Exactly. Gone are the days of just slapping a billboard up and calling it a day, right?
Exactly. The internet has, well, it's completely transformed how brands interact with their audience, you know what I mean? I mean, think about it. Consumers are just flooded with messages constantly. So what actually cuts through the noise these days, it's not just about shouting the loudest anymore, it's about crafting a story that resonates, forging genuine connections.
So it's less about broadcasting and more about having a two-way conversation with your customers. Is that what you're saying?
Precisely. And Shaw highlights this shift beautifully, actually, with a quote from Target CMO Jeff Jones. He says that customer curiosity has to be paramount. You can't connect with someone if you don't genuinely want to understand them.
That makes total sense. It's like you can't just throw a product out there and expect people to get it, to understand it, to buy it. You have to dig deeper into what makes them tick, what problems they need solved, what they're looking for.
And that customer-centric approach, that's the cornerstone of what a modern CMO brings to the table. They're not
Right.
just thinking about campaigns anymore, they're architects of the entire customer experience.
Which brings us to this whole concept of a fractional CMO. It's something Shah really advocates for in certain scenarios. It almost sounds like a superhero, like a masked marketing crusader, swooping in to save the day when a company's marketing isn't hitting the mark.
Right. There's a real need for that kind of targeted expertise. And Shaw actually outlines 10 specific situations where bringing in a fractional CMO can be, well, a game changer, as you said.
Okay, 10 scenarios. That's a
Oh.
lot to unpack. So let's dive into one that I think a lot of businesses can relate to. Imagine you've got a fantastic product. It's amazing. But your internal marketing team is struggling to articulate its value, what makes it so great to your target audience. Maybe they're great at execution, they get things done, but the messaging just isn't landing. What do you do?
That's a perfect example of where a fractional CMO can be so valuable. They can swoop in, analyze the product, the market, the target customer, and then craft a compelling narrative that actually resonates, that drives those conversions.
So it's like bringing in a specialist translator, someone who can bridge the gap between what you do and why it matters to the people you're trying to reach.
Exactly. They bring a fresh perspective, an outside-in view that can unlock massive potential. And because they're not bogged down by the day-to-day operations, they can focus intensely on that specific objective.
And I imagine that kind of laser focus is especially valuable in today's fast-paced business environment. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not enough to just keep up. You have to be one step ahead, anticipating the next trend if you want to survive, right?
Absolutely. And that's another key benefit of a fractional CMO. They're constantly immersed in the latest marketing trends and technologies. They live and breathe this stuff, so they bring that cutting-edge knowledge to the table, which can be a game changer for businesses struggling to adapt to, well, the ever-evolving digital landscape.
So it's not just about having someone execute marketing tasks. It's about having a strategic partner who can help you navigate the complexities of the modern marketplace. It's about having a CMO on demand, so to speak, without the commitment of a full-time hire.
Precisely. And that flexibility can be incredibly powerful, especially for businesses in growth mode or going through periods of transformation.
And it's not just about marketing tactics either, is it? Like, Shaw really pushes back on this idea that CMOs just live in their own little world, only focused on ad campaigns and slogans and stuff.
He does. Yeah, Shaw's point is that, in today's world, everything's so interconnected. So a CMO's impact, it kind of ripples out, it goes way beyond just the marketing department. They need to have this like 360-degree view of the customer journey, which means they end up influencing everything from how the product's developed to how customer service is handled.
So it's less about being a department head and more about being a customer advocate, but like across the entire company.
Exactly. Shaw keeps coming back to this idea of building a customer-centric culture. And what he means by that is it's not enough to just attract customers, right? You got to keep them engaged, keep them happy. It's about building relationships, not just transactions.
Which actually makes me think about the whole data side of things, you know? It seems like a fractional CMO could be incredibly valuable here. They could come in, analyze all that customer data, pinpoint the pain points, figure out where the customer experience could be improved, right?
Absolutely. I mean, data is gold, right? But you need someone who knows how to mine it, how to extract those actionable insights. A good fractional CMO, they can pinpoint those critical touch points where you can really elevate the customer experience. You turn those one-time buyers into, loyal fans of your brand, hopefully.
It's like having a marketing detective on the case.
Yeah.
But instead of looking for clues at a crime scene, they're finding opportunities to make customers happier and, let's be real, more likely to spend money.
I like that, the marketing detective. But you're right. And speaking of opportunities, Shaw actually cites this really interesting study by the Digital Marketing Institute. They found that 68%, that's over two-thirds, of senior managers, they expect their CMOs to be major drivers of growth.
Which, I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense. If you're the one in charge of attracting customers and making sure they're happy, well, you're directly impacting that bottom line.
Precisely. Shaw quotes Kimberly Whitler. She's the former CMO of Procter & Gamble. And she says that CMOs today, they need to be well-versed in finance, in tech, even in product development. It's a far cry from just managing, ad budgets like they used to.
Talk about wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it almost seems like too much for one person to handle, which, kind of makes me think about this paradox that Shaw brings up. He says that, on the one hand, the CMO role is more important than ever before, but on the other hand, it also has the shortest tenure among C-suite executives. So what gives? Why is that?
It is interesting, isn't it? It's like this contradiction. Shaw suggests that, maybe part of the problem is just a lack of clarity. Like companies don't really know what they want from their CMO. They expect them to be miracle workers, but are they actually giving them the support, the resources they need to succeed? It makes you wonder.
So it's like setting someone up for failure from the beginning. If everyone's on a different page about expectations from day one, well, no wonder there's frustration on both sides.
Exactly. And maybe, and this is just a thought, but maybe the traditional model itself is part of the problem. The long contracts, the fixed responsibilities. It might not be agile enough for, today's business world, right? Things move so fast.
Which brings us back to fractional CMOs, doesn't it? They bring that flexibility, that adaptability that's so crucial in today's market.
Precisely. A fractional CMO can come in, make a targeted impact on a specific problem, and then, gracefully exit. They leave the company with a stronger foundation for growth. And because they're not bound by the same constraints as a traditional CMO, it allows them to be more innovative, maybe challenge the status quo a little bit more.
It's true. Sometimes you just need a fresh perspective, right? Like a new set of eyes to come in and see the problems and the opportunities that maybe you've just gotten too used to seeing to even notice anymore.
Totally. And that fresh perspective is especially important when it comes to the digital world, which, Shaw talks a lot about. He's really big on smart digitization. And I love how he warns against just chasing after those shiny objects, like trying to make every single thing go viral.
Yeah, because going viral is basically the lottery of the internet, right? Like, it's amazing if it happens, but you can't exactly build a sustainable business strategy around it.
Exactly. Shaw's point is that a good fractional CMO, they understand that. They can help businesses navigate the digital world, but in a way that's intentional. It's about finding the right platforms for your audience, crafting content that actually resonates with them, and then constantly analyzing the data, figuring out what's working, what's not, and then adjusting your approach based on what you learn.
So it's not just about being present online, it's about being strategic. It's about playing the long game.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm thinking about those companies that jumped on every single social media platform that came along. They spread themselves way too thin, and it just wasn't sustainable.
100%. And it's so easy to get caught up in all the hype, right? But a smart fractional CMO, they can help you cut through all the noise. They can help you focus on the strategies that actually align with your business goals, what you're actually trying to achieve.
So I'm just thinking, if we were to put together like a CMO starter kit based on all these insights that Shah is giving us, it seems like the absolute essentials would be, 1, a deep understanding of the customer, 2, a real knack for storytelling, for crafting a compelling brand narrative, and 3, that ability to navigate the digital world effectively, like Did I miss anything?
Nope, I think you nailed it. At the end of the day, it's about connecting with your audience, building that trust, and then ultimately, driving growth for your business.
Oh, and I think you also have to add that adaptability piece, right? The marketing world changes so fast. So a good CMO, whether they're traditional or fractional, they need to be constantly learning, constantly evolving, which brings us back to Shah's big closing thought, this really provocative question.
Mhm.
He asks, is something like 80% of CEOs out there, if they're not happy with their CMO's performance, is it maybe time to rethink the traditional model altogether? Like, could fractional CMOs actually be the future of marketing leadership?
It's a really interesting question. I don't know if there's an easy answer, but I think what's clear is that the role of the CMO, it's more complex, more demanding than ever before. And as the business world continues to evolve at this crazy pace, it kind of makes sense that our models for leadership, they'll have to adapt too, right?
For sure. And it's something for all of us to think about, whether you're a CMO yourself, a CEO trying to figure out the best way to structure your team, or honestly, even if you're just someone who's always been a little curious about what goes on in the minds of those marketing masterminds. But hey, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us and exploring this fascinating topic.
Absolutely. Always happy to geek out about marketing. Thanks for having me.